All right, you're listening to the first ever episode of the Southbound Sports Report. Normally, we do a show every Tuesday night. We do it live on iTunes, and Facebook Live is where we stream it live. But it posts on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and all kind of other podcast hosts. Now, because sports is such a medium that changes almost immediately every day, we're looking at ways to get new content out to everyone. And we're testing a new platform here. We're on Spreaker, and we're going to see if we can get basically a live radio show more often. When we first started out, it's probably not going to be every day, but at least whenever a big news story breaks, we'll be able to cover it as well as maybe do some pregame stuff. Maybe like before the playoffs, give a rundown of some games, and then afterwards we can hit it back up. But that's what we're testing out here. So today I'm going to get right into it. We're going to look at college football early signing day. Now, these episodes are going to be shorter than our typical. On Tuesday nights, we stream for a little bit over an hour. These are going to be shorter than that, little just news snippets that you can consume pretty quick and hopefully keep up with as we cover big topics that aren't really talked about in depth. We have a focus here around the Pittsburgh sports area. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, and I live in Raleigh. So today we're mainly going to be focusing on the ACC and the Big Ten. And I'll start off by saying that the approach to this day, I had my concerns because I wasn't sure how coaches were going to handle it and if big names were even going to sign. Most people know that if you're a sports guy, you've heard or seen how the signing day has evolved into a spectacle. Now they're all kind of bells and whistles. People have, I saw a kid jump out of an airplane. I think he was skydiving. Someone did a Walking Dead parody. Was it last year or 2 years ago? So kids do elaborate things to try to get attention, and schools put on big events for that. Now that normally happens, I think the first Wednesday of every February. And after bowl season, coaches get on the road and they hit up hard. I actually like this early signing day because it's right. It's not in a lull period. I feel bad for teams that actually had to play this week. Lane Kiffin and FAU, we talked about him on the Southbound Sports Show last night. His team was playing a game, and then he has to get back to have kids sign early. So it's going to be tough on schools that make these early bowl games, but I think it's a way for smaller schools to kind of lock up their class, and then you see it every year. The bigger schools poach kids on the last day. They try to get them to flip. Smaller schools, maybe a plan B. The A goes to another rival, so they hurry up and poach a recruit from a smaller school. You see it happen all the time. So I wasn't sure how many people were going to sign. But here in Raleigh, NC State had their class pretty much all signed by, was it 9 a.m.? Everybody was in, and everyone was locked and loaded. I think they had 18 people. I'll see if I have a time on this. It might even have been earlier than that. It was almost as soon as the day went. That's where most of the people were signed. So early this morning, they had 18 people locked up, a couple 4 stars and a bunch of 3 stars. I think they had 2 stars. You can't be stargazing at this event because when you're looking at it from the perspective of the athletes and you're looking at it from the coaches. They're not going to be able to get everyone that they want. And this early period is a day for them to get the guys that they really want signed early, and then they can shoot for the stars. A program like NC State that's not going to be signing 5-star recruits every year, now they lock down their core. They have 18. Normally you're allowed to sign around 25. If they enroll early, you can go over that. I'm not sure. The people that signed today, definitely not all of them are going to enroll early. But it's a good way to get the ones that are signed and in the class before you had to get them enrolled, and then they counted, was it against last year's class, or if someone transferred out, you could count them against last year. So it was a little bit of some number wrangling by recruiting services and everything. I think this is going to clear it up a lot. And I actually like today. You had a little bit of the excitement earlier. It wasn't in February where it was kind of like, what's going to happen? major disappointment, major excitement. You didn't have the major disappointment because you know another day is coming. If you look down, I was actually curious, and I'm using 24/7 Sports. They do a composite ranking of all of the athletes. So if you go there, you can kind of see they have a class calculator. If they sign certain teams, where are they gonna go ahead and sign up? And let's see what happens. Now the top people, if you're looking at the top recruits, now they do have a couple different things here, but their team rosters, I'm very impressed with Penn State. I wanted to get that right off the bat here. Penn State had a couple verbal commits of high ranks that they never get. And I was looking back through the history today. I think the highest class Penn State ever had was 5th. And it was around the mid-2000s, maybe up through the 2008 year, where they got eliminated late from the national championship discussion with a last-second field goal loss to Iowa. But James Franklin was out on the road. They had this class in the books for, it seemed like 2 years now. He's been working on building this up. And his other classes over time weren't as well, or they weren't as highly ranked. So let's go back through time. So he started in 2014. That first year, you really can't tell because you're bringing in extra kids. You have a shortened period of time. He transferred some kids, I think, from Vanderbilt years. I think that was his first year. So he had 24th class. Then he went up to 14th. Had a little bit of a setback. I think he had 2 7-win years in a row. Dropped back down to 20th. Last year, he signed the 15th ranked class when they went and won the Big Ten championship. And then this year, this class, it was all building up to this class. Is he going to have these guys ready to play, and is he building a program there that's going to be reckoned with? He went ahead and had all of his kids sign, including, was it Parsons? One of the kids that was involved with Ohio State trying to flip him. Ohio State got into a little bit of a recruiting situation where they had to back off because of some violations, trying to flip him. They weren't able to do it. He ended up signing with Penn State today. Penn State locked up 3 5-star recruits. They haven't had a class like this in over a decade, or around a decade. And it's shaping up to be one of the most impressive classes. Right now, they're sitting at 4th overall. They have the similar class build as Ohio State. But Ohio State's middle ground, they're 4 stars. They have 16 right now. Penn State can't match up with that. But overall, from Penn State's perspective, they've never really been that top team in the Big Ten recruiting-wise. They've always, as I look back through the years, they were always second tier to Ohio State or Michigan, and maybe even third most of those years. So now it's good to see Franklin building up and getting into a situation where they can compete not only once in a blue moon, they can compete on a yearly basis. I know they had a chance this year to go back-to-back. Didn't really pull it off. They won big against Michigan, but then they lost some nail-biters against Ohio State and Michigan State where they were in the game. I felt like they got outcoached a little bit. Their offensive coordinator's moving on. So time's going to tell how well is Penn State going to do. Are they going to be able to take that next step now as a program? Another program outside of the ACC Big Ten country is Texas. They are rolling in recruiting with Tom Herman in his second year. They're sitting 3rd right now. Their average roster's at a 93.5, and that's out of 100, I believe. Penn State's at 91, just for comparison, from 3 to 4. And then as you go down the list, most average rankings are 90s for a top 10. Once you get outside the top 10, your average roster is going to be around an 89, 88 as you work your way down. Getting back to the ACC, I watched NC State. They're pretty high. They finished the day at 23rd. 22 guys are committed, so the commits still count, even if they didn't sign today. There are some reasons where you might not have signed, but for the most part, it's looking impressive for this first overall early signing period. I liked it. Kids were able to get out there. They were able to still do the same things, have their day, go on ESPN, sign. Now they can work on either enrolling early, they can work on other stuff, academics, hang out with their friends. They don't have to worry about getting cut because some people, you hear the horror stories of recruits that they're ready to sign with a school. They never get that formal offer. Then they go on social media and they complain that their offer had been pulled last minute. They had no backup plans. Now they kind of know where, hey, if you want to sign, you had a day in December to sign. If you didn't sign and it comes back in February and your offer's pulled, that's up to you. And I read some quotes on this from coaches. They were saying that if you don't sign in December, you're not committed. It doesn't matter if you're on a website that says you're committed to us, you put it on your Twitter profile, your Facebook profile, whatever. If you're not committed to us, then you have to sign if you are. I kind of messed it up there, but if coaches are saying that if kids say they're committed, they should sign this early period and end the drama. And last thing before we go, because these aren't going to be as long, and they're definitely going to be under 15 minutes. That's just a limitation as we're trying out this platform. But Michigan, I thought, as I'm a Michigan guy, Michigan alum, I always talk about them on the big show. I'm hoping this report show is going to be a way to get a little bit more hands-on and dirty with that. But they pulled in a decent class that I haven't been. Some people have been knocking it, but overall it's sitting at 12. Whenever you have top 10 classes, and one was a top 5 class the past 2 years with Harbaugh, and now you're taking a smaller class. Every time you take a smaller class, you're bound to fall in the rankings because it goes by total number and the average, not just the average. They are sitting at an 89 average, which is right outside the top 10 where it should be. I don't think this is going to hurt them overall for the total roster, but we'll be getting into that. I'm probably going to check back on this, and we'll talk about it on the big show next week. Behind the numbers, Florida State was getting hurt, though. The last thing I'll touch on from the ACC, they were behind Pitt. They were behind a ton of rivals. They had only signed 2 people this morning over lunch when I looked at this. Now they're falling. Herm Edwards, I mentioned yesterday on the Southbound Sports Show. You can listen to it on iTunes, search for it. Arizona fell, dude, 71st overall. They're behind programs like Western Kentucky, Kansas State, FIU, Toledo. Florida State's all the way down at 63 to get back to them. So 2 of the teams we were worried about, they didn't make a big move. I think one of the quarterbacks that Florida State was trying to get signed with Florida. I could be wrong. It might not be the same guy. But they're sitting there. Florida State only signed 3 guys today. And I think that's what you're going to see. Whenever you have a coaching change, it's really going to hurt with this early signing period. When you have Penn State signs 21, I think Michigan signed like 16 or 17. NC State signed 18, like I mentioned. That's what's going to happen. So I'm looking at this. There's still a good bit of athletes overall that haven't signed. There's one in the top 10 that didn't sign today. There are, and I don't even know, are these signed or even people that committed? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's about 6 in the top 25, 30 recruits that didn't sign yet. So you're still going to see that and a good bit more in the top 50 that they're going to come back on the second signing day in February, and they're going to go ahead and hit it up and get their day in the sun. So that's it for the Southbound Sports Report. It's going to be a little bit more of breaking news, I would say. Anytime coaching hires, we might give our insight, callers. We can do things a little bit more freely. There's no video component to this because we can go ahead and record it on the go. That's what I like. So if you have any feedback, comments, what you would like to hear, please reach out and let us know. And if there's any issues, also reach out to me because I want to try to get this to be a way to get more reach and more up-to-date with breaking news and topics. So again, I'm your host, Richie Leahy. I'm sure the other guys might fill in on this too. As I test it out, it might be a quick way to get sound bites after games for certain people, whatever they're fans of, and other thoughts. But that's what we'll be trying to do here. Nothing's going to change with the big show. It's still going to be live on Facebook Live every Tuesday night at 9. I'm also looking at syndicating it maybe the day after Wednesday back on Periscope where we started live, but I haven't figured that out yet. That'll be tested out here over the next couple weeks. So keep an eye out for that. Follow us on Twitter, I think Facebook, YouTube. You can like our channel. All the stuff will be there whenever it's live. So we'll be back. There's no schedule. So keep an eye out for this as we get into more of a routine. You'll be seeing more episodes from us. Thanks for listening.